My friend Sholo and I are meeting with the California Innocence Project. There's a convicted guy, they're sure he's innocent, and we're gonna retrace the steps of the crime.
To really understand how convoluted and messed up this narrative they're about to try to spin is, I'm going to have to brief you on the case of Jason Walton and what actually happened according to articles that were written at the time and some legal documents I was able to find. But as you will soon be shown, the choice of selecting this specific case is oddly convenient with a lack of information, as I'm sure you will agree. So we go here to the Los Angeles Times article titled "Suspect Held in Fatal Shooting Near Carnival" by Richard Winton, November 19th, 2005. A 21-year-old gang member has been arrested on suspicion of shooting to death a teenage boy and wounding another last Sunday night outside of Jefferson Park Neighborhood Carnival. Police said Jason Walton was apprehended after witnesses identified him as the gunman in the shooting of 14-year-olds William Cox and Edward Williams. Police said Cox died at the scene, but Williams was expected to make a full recovery. There are two things that really stick out to me about why this is such a strange choice to choose in a 2021 doc about the current issue of systemic racism in America. First off, obviously, a case from 2005 is a little old. I would assume there are plenty of cases to choose from when addressing the topic of systematic racism and injustice. Not police brutality. I don't know if I was saying that before. That's not what I'm talking about, obviously. But what's interesting also is that never in this video will you hear them say the victims were children. Both victims in this case were children, which is also why it is so hard to find information on this case. The court proceedings were private, and most of the records were sealed due to the victims being minors and their parents wanting their identities to be protected. I'm also going to bring up the this file, the docket of the Second Appellate District Court, California. People versus Walton. This is the case. There's very limited information, but there is a list of events documented here of an appeal that was filed and closed in case complete in February 27th, 2008. So he has already submitted an appeal and was denied. Essentially, he is a guilty, convicted child murderer. Now, after hearing the case that I have just described to you, listen to the way they describe it.
Jason Walton got falsely charged with a murder. And right where you're standing, Trippie, this is where the shooting actually occurred. This guy, Cox and Williams, they're at this carnival. The next thing you know, a gun is firing off. Cox ends up dead. Williams ends up shot. And our client ultimately gets convicted for it.
This guy, Cox and Williams. This guy. He says this guy. They are 14-year-old kids. He is purposely avoiding saying that they are kids because he knows he is defending a child murderer. Yeah, they're at this carnival. Next thing you know, this gun is firing off. What kind of deduction of events from a fucking child murder is that? A carnival, next thing you know, guns are firing off. What do you mean, guns are firing off? Someone fired a gun and killed a kid. But I guess that means nothing to you.
There's this dude right next to the shooter, and he couldn't ultimately identify him. There's a second witness. This guy's like 150 feet away. Hey, Trippie, can you see us?
I don't see nothing.
Exactly.
I don't see a mother. So there was actually a porta potty right there, so we couldn't really see anything, because if it was right there...
Yeah, it was actually worse than this, because there were multiple porta potties, and he was further away than what we did right there. One of the leading causes of wrongful conviction in America is bad identification. And this guy was standing here running a carnival game. Ultimately, he's come forward and said, I don't think I saw anything.
That's crazy.
So here they're talking about the eyewitness testimonies, which were crucial in convicting Jason Walton. And what they're doing is they're basically doing like a half-ass recreation of that is nothing like the actual event. Obviously, there was a literal carnival going on. The layout, I assumed, looked a lot different 15 years ago during a carnival than that barren lot you're in right now. And at the end, they almost bury the lead, where they just kind of throw it in at the end, like, oh, by the way, this witness who said he saw the shooter actually is saying he didn't see the shooter. So who is this mighty crusader? Where is Jason Walton's saving grace? Where is the mighty redeemer of child murderers? What's his name? Because if you're making a claim like this, if you're claiming that someone who was convicted of murdering a child and had an appeal, like, if you're making a claim like this, you better have something a little more. You better have something a little more.
Now, Williams, the guy who got shot, identified Jason Walton. But when you look at his ID, he said the shooter was shorter than me. Williams, 5'8". Jason is 6'1".
So there's no way it could have been.
It just makes no sense. The height part really doesn't make sense.
So now they're going after a statement a child gunshot victim made after being shot in the chest. He might have gotten the height of his assailant wrong. A little bit, he might have been under a little bit of stress in that situation. Maybe he wasn't all focused in the headspace. But the point is that he identified the person that everyone else identified at the crime scene to be the shooter. The odds of that happening are next to none. Also, what would be the motivation in this case for anyone in this situation to falsely identify the assailant? Both of the victims in question were of the same race as the Jason Walton, the assailant. If this was a case of systematic racism, I would not see how it would fit into that narrative.
What are the next steps?
Very few of our cases do our clients actually have solid alibis. But Jason, we've got him on camera at a restaurant, and then he goes off camera for 18 minutes. So at trial, the prosecution said in those 18 minutes, he left the restaurant, drove back here, found these guys, did the shooting, went back in the car, went back to the restaurant.
So now we finally get to their main argument, their smoking gun, if you will, where basically they say that because he was at a restaurant at a specific time, and that in between that and the murder, there was a specific amount of time, that he could not have gotten to the murder scene, committed the murder, and gotten back to the restaurant in time. And they show a shitty little map that is inaccurate to what the layout of the neighborhood actually is, and a distance which is inaccurate. Well, the distance is accurate if you were taking the longest possible route on Google Maps. But as you can see here, the shortest driving distance between the 2 points listed, 106 East Manchester Boulevard and 3792 2nd Ave, is 5.3 miles. And to move 5.3 miles within a span of less than 8 minutes, you would not even need to drive an average of a total of 40 miles per hour. So I would say this is not at all without of the realm of possibility. And it just goes to show how clearly they are selecting they're selecting information to fit their narrative. They're not actually trying to solve a a child murder. They are just trying to acquit a child murderer through the spreading of false information.
That's it. Jason's out of time. You so rarely can document the exact minute someone was in a location. And even with that, Jason goes to prison for this crime he didn't commit.
It's not possible.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
To sit here and just know the things I know about the case and know that this guy's pretty much innocent is just like so heartbreaking.
Yeah, I guess he's basically innocent. He was only convicted of first-degree murder of a child, and had an appeal that was also denied by a jury. I don't know what other proof you want. You brought no proof to the table. You just basically came out in support of a convicted child murderer with no evidential backing. And you say you're heartbroken? How do you think the family of William Cox feels? You think you're heartbroken over this? How do you think their family feels about what the tragedy of their son's death has turned into now? You've turned a child's death into a communist political agenda statement with no grounds in realism or facts or evidence or anything.
I've personally felt that pain from others and all that, you know, my friends and everybody that I've been around. Even if it's not LA, you know, different states, they do the same thing. They'll put you in prison without knowing if you did it or not, just because somebody called on you. Man, you gotta get picked up. Shit crazy.
So now you know that we drove here, we can figure out, gathering up evidence that says that it probably wasn't Jason. What are the next steps to try to get him exonerated?
I think our best route in this case is to get the LA District Attorney's Office to reopen this case and to investigate this case with us. And that's the way the system should work.
Well, I just want to thank you, you feel me? Like, devoting your life to that, to get other people's lives to where they should be. That's amazing to me, so I respect you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Sure.
This honestly makes me just so sick to my stomach. To come out and just blatantly say that someone who was convicted of murdering a child is innocent with no evidential backing. It's one thing to come out and say, hey, I think there might have been a mistake here. This is worth looking into again. They are saying that this person is innocent. This convicted child murderer is innocent. This is blatant manipulation and propaganda. Not to mention that this case is an extraordinary event in the sense that it's a tragedy of the African American community, and that is just being completely buried by this narrative that's being perpetuated by this show and Trippie Redd. He is literally taking power from the people he is claiming to to empower. He's literally taking power from those he is claiming to empower.